Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome Peter, Thomas, and Richard back to the second half of our final Peering 101 webinar event for the year. We had a great conversation in the last session, and we spoke about the trends and sort of impacts to the industry that we see and feel are driving change. Today, just pivot slightly the conversation. I'm sort of interested really to hear the guys' points of view really on collaboration and what the environment of collaboration is hopefully being worked on and delivering for us in the near future. Epsilon's been a partner with all of you, all the IXs for a few years now, and I guess when we think in terms like network as a service and functions like that, how do you see these types of network partnerships growing in the future? And I guess what type of mutual benefits are you seeing being realized now and maybe in the future as well? And I know definitely we've had a lot of engagement with our lead-off responder, Peter at AMSEX. So Peter, just on those questions, how are you seeing these types of network partnerships evolving and hopefully delivering in the future?
So partnerships are vital to what we do, and I think we touched upon it actually in the other webinar as well. We may be one of the larger IXs in the world, but we also have limited resources, like I think everybody else, which means that we need to partner with the likes of yourselves or others to achieve service levels and achieve the plans we have. But I think also very importantly, partners possess other knowledge or other experience, other access than we do ourselves. So by working together, we can only provide a better service to our customers. And as an example, right, we work with you abroad. We don't have our own resources there, so you may know the market better than we do. So that's one of the reasons, for example, to partner. Another thing is that you bring insights that we may not have. You may have customers, for example, more on the enterprise side, where we typically or historically have more partners on the networking side. But actually, the ultimate consumer is driving a lot of the demand. So yeah, partnerships are critical, and I believe they will only increase going forward because nobody can do it alone. So as much as we work together as IXs, working together with partners, the networks, the data centers, etc., is only going to increase in my view.
And Thomas, DKICs have entered into some interesting partnerships over the last few years, maybe around networking. I think you're even doing some interesting stuff with data centers. Is that correct?
So yeah, partnerships are important for us on different levels, and as Peter just mentioned, our partners bring a different knowledge, different experience, different channel, different customers to the table, which we cannot build and which we would never could reach without our partners. So joining up with strong partners allows us to be even stronger together than if we both just do our own thing without working together. And so it's definitely critical to our business, to our growth, that we partner up with data centers, for instance. So we have partnered up with Interaction very closely. We have been good partners for a long time, but recently we have extended that partnership also, that they are now resellers of DKICs, and they are reselling DKIC services via their portal. They have been implementing the IX API recently, so they can now use the DKIC API to order services and get them delivered on demand, and not only to the data centers where DKIC is in with their own POP, with own hardware, but Interaction also interconnected the different data centers they have in Europe, or most of them. And so now, let's say a customer in Zurich or in Stockholm can easily consume the DKIC services available in Frankfurt or in Madrid or in Marseille by just using the portal from Interaction. And this is a great example, how you can extend the reach to customers, how you can open up new target groups, how you can extend all your network by partnering up with somebody who is also in your community somehow in the family of what you do, but they have a different task. They're running data centers, and they have also demands from their customers how they can provide interconnectivity. So working together here is a very strong thing to do, and it's beneficial for both. And yeah, that's just one of our partnerships we have done recently. I could name a few more, like with DRT, with Equinix, with eShelter, NTT now, with Global Switch. So we have similar partnerships with many data center operators. And we just named the big ones, but also with smaller ones, like with Telemax or with Command here in Germany. They are running smaller data centers, and for them we bring the interconnection requirements into their data center, so they can can provide to their customers all the different interconnection services that are required nowadays in a data center. Like cloud connectivity or point-to-point data center interconnects or peering, transit, whatever they need. We can bring it into their data center by just having one partner in the data center, and this is beneficial for the smaller data centers very much, because that keeps their customers in the data centers. They don't move to the interactions and Equinixes of the world or to Frankfurt. Let's put it that way. And they keep them regional, and also attract additional customers for their regional data centers, because they have the interconnection services which are available in Frankfurt, for instance, in their regional data center somewhere in Mannheim or Karlsruhe, or we have also one from Stack IT, which is also a strong data center provider, but it's somewhere close to Austria and Salzburg. And by having this kind of partnership is beneficial for both parties, and this is good for all of us, I think.
Okay. And Richard, Links have certainly done or announced some interesting partnerships over the last 12 months, and I think, if I recall, there was an IX one, which again involves the connectivity as an enablement layer then. Yeah, over to you. Any other sort of comments to add?
Well, I think Peter and Thomas have covered it pretty well there. I mean, just to echo, I mean, the partnerships are important to us, not just with companies like yourself, Mark, with Epsilon, but we're doing collaborative projects, and hopefully we'll get on to the IX API project that we worked on. But we're doing collaborative projects together to try and, as Thomas mentioned there, to try and help drive all of us forward. I think the sort of take I put on it is actually, I think it's healthy for us as a business, and I'm sure for the others, to work in partnership, because you get the ideas coming from different areas of the interconnection industry, and it really drives you to question yourself, about what markets you want to play on, how quick can you move, how agile can you be, what type of organizations you want to be, and when you hear from other businesses like yourselves and your digital story of where you're going and what customers you've got, it kind of drives it makes you question and reflect on your own capabilities, and then hopefully drive capabilities within each of our organizations, and I think that's healthy. It's healthy to keep us competitive, and it's healthy to in the partnership to help us to grow into new markets.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think that sort of shared experience as well, a really good sort of driver mechanism for sort of innovation and growth, and especially at this sort of juncture in time where we have sort of businesses and people and applications all having to start to interact in a different manner as well, and working from home and things like that too. And so having and leaning on and learning from experiences in that partner ecosystem is highly valuable, and half of 3/4 of our strategy, so that as myself and as Epsilon, is derived really from what's going on around us, not within us. And it's a really good point. And I guess that does lead us into the IX API project as a great example of cross collaboration and partner ecosystem innovation amongst the IXs, and obviously amongst a telco and a data center. Can maybe Richard, back to you again. Can you kind of tell us how that came about, and how the project itself was, I guess, conceived, and then how you actually got that project up and running?
Yeah, I mean it's been a while now actually that we've been working together. I mean how it came about I think it was just the three internet exchanges, AMSIX, DKIX, Link sat down. Some of the technical staff, myself, Thomas, and Henk from Amsterdam, and I think we quite unique at the time. We were very open, very transparent, and we discussed and whiteboarded a number of ideas on how we can improve the peering ecosystem and the interconnection ecosystem. We were very honest and open with each other about all the challenges that all of us faced, and out of that sort of brainstorming session or that whiteboarding session came the idea about having a common interface to consume our services. We can all see the digitization journey that we're going in, and we can see that how even though the internet exchanges operate slightly differently from one to another, we've got a common challenge around how how peering is consumed digitally. And that's really what was the birth of the IX API. We then obviously sat down and formulated how we would work collaboratively on development, on standards, on specifications, and then promotion. And that's where we're trying to get this the IX API not just consumed by us three, but to try and get that consumed by many other internet exchanges around the world. And that's where it came from. Links has obviously been a big part of that, as has AMSIX and DKIX, and we're happy to see phase 2 now come in, and I'm sure Thomas or Peter would like to speak a little bit about phase 2, but we're keen to push on with phase 2 and start developing phase 3, and not only for partners like yourselves in Interaction, but for consumers, customers, members of our internet exchanges that want to develop against that API direct as well. So I think there's huge potential over the next year or two for these type of digital consumption models.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Peter, anything to add to that? I know AMSIX had been looking at these type of capabilities for some time. So obviously there was the seeds as well internally. Anything to add?
Yeah, no, Richard said it well. I think what's very important here is that I used it before, this word co-opetition, right? Where we literally, and maybe it's a little bit easier sometimes on the technical side of the spectrum, right? But indeed, the three CTOs sat down and were very open about some of the challenges we were facing. But also coming back on the partnership question earlier, we were also seeing that same challenge for many of our partners and or customers. So that's where we started it, and of course AMSIX was committed and invest in it. We also had some internal work to do because it's of course great that you have your external interface to partners and be able to consume it a bit more as a service type services. However, if it doesn't land correctly internally, of course, then it's still it's not really very beneficial. So yes, we've invested both internally and externally. We have version 1 live, version 2 is coming online shortly. And then, yes, Richard said, we will continue to invest in other types of versions and functionality that will go in. But personally, I believe the API in general, not just ours, but IX API, I mean with that. But I think API in general is going to play an important part going forward. So where many companies individually are going through their digital journey, dare I say, some sort of a supply chain integration type development, but then in the digital world is most likely going to happen. And we're just laying, the foundation, the first sort of bricks to that foundation we're laying with IX API. So no, I'm really happy we've been able to do this, and we're continuing to build on that partnership and building that functionality, because we believe that's going to be pivotal in the months and years to come in how businesses develop and organize themselves around interconnectivity and cloud and all of those types of services.
And Thomas, I remember visiting your offices maybe 2 years ago and going into a room, and it was covered in just stuff thrown up on this huge 4 white walls, if you remember. And
Sure.
a lot of the stuff that was thrown on the wall, I would call the drivers, as per my question. What were the drivers? And so you guys had obviously been thinking a lot about these kind of external influences. in programmability and function sitting out there. So I'm assuming that you've spent a lot of time thinking about what you took into the IX API even before the project started, yeah?
So definitely we did that, and during our, when we looked into the API at DKIX, first we realized pretty quickly that for our customers, and we all do it for our customers, right? For our customers, it needs to be a nightmare implementing APIs from all different IXPs just to be in the peering world, and the interconnection ecosystem is quite rich. So we were saying, it can't be, and it will not be successful if we all came up with our own APIs, and all will be different in a feature set and how they work and how you implement them and all this kind of stuff. And actually, when we brought up this topic, and I actually can't remember who actually started the discussion, but my impression was Amsix and Lynx, they all were on the same level of development. So I think you had the same thoughts internally within your groups, right? So when we discussed this topic, we all agreed at the same time, yeah, it's stupid to come up with our own APIs all individually. We need to come up with something that is more general, that so that our customers can easily consume it. They implement this API once for their automation tool chain, and then they can connect to all the different IXPs out there in the ideal world. And in the first step, now it's 3 of us, and Netnode is working on it, and I have heard Moscow IX is looking into it, and France IX, and a few others. We see momentum in adopting the IX API, and we see, or we also heard from our customers, and we also see, more and more of them are implementing it, that they appreciate that we have worked together as a group to come up with a universal API that can be used by many interconnection service providers like DKIX, like Amsix, like Lynx, like Epsilon, right? And also Interaction is using it, and it's using it in 2 ways, and that's very interesting because they are a consumer of the X API to resell services from all of us. But they're also providing to their customers the IX API so that their customers can consume their interconnection services based on the IX API. And that just shows how universal this API is. It can cover the use cases of a data center provider. And it also shows, how well thought the idea is, and how easy it can be applied by a data center provider. And I think that that already shows that we are on the right path here, and we're pushing forward to get version 2 and 3 up and running. I'm pretty happy with what we achieved here, and especially as we are, somehow as competitors. Of course, we are in some markets. That's true, but it's also wise to work together with competitors sometimes to achieve something that you can achieve alone. And I think this proves it here, right? We have done a tremendous job, I guess.
Actually, you kind of answered or led into my next question, which was around success stories of the deployment of the IX API, and you've already mentioned, really the efficiencies of a standard as well. And I spent some time in the roaming industry where roaming was only able to get to the level of cost because of standardization. Even if back in the old days, if people thought roaming was expensive, if it didn't have standardization, it would have been even worse. And so it's a lot easier as a developer just to take this blueprint here and deploy that. And so it's a really big, I think, part of the success story is making it easier to implement. Richard, from your perspective, do you see any other angles around sort of success outcomes that have been delivered by the IX API project?
Well, I think success is. I think we are doing foundations. Peter mentioned it about the foundations. Excuse me. Peter mentioned it about the foundations, and we are really feeling at that stage. And I think there's huge success still to come around the corner. I mean, if we look at the challenges, and again, Peter mentioned this a little bit, is around actually, well, the APIs and interface into the peering services. Well, what about all of the fulfillment part of it, and how much of that is manual, and how much of that is digital, and how much of it can you then expose back through insight and observation back to your consumers and your customers. And I think actually getting that next phase of development and also helping other internet exchanges adopt the IX API and have a tool set that can also automate the consumption fulfillment is going to be key of the next round of success. And that might be, again, working in collaboration with other things around tools that are already in the industry, like IXP Manager. It might be working in conjunction with companies like yourselves, where we have a common interconnection API across different industries. So I think there's huge success still to come. I mean, it's great the grounds that we've made, and we've got partners like yourself and Interaction, and we've got customers and other IXs that Thomas mentioned that are adopting it. But I think there's a lot more to come, and a lot more around the complete journey of automation and fulfillment that we need to work on as well.
And I know, Peter, you bring a lot of expertise from some different industries as well. Do you see that sort of the concept of the IX API pushing into maybe these newer ecosystem members of the IX community?
No, so I wanted to come back on one other thing on the API, and I think that part or one of the larger success points is actually the collaboration itself. The fact that, you know, as the three of us were able to come together and put something in place that is already valuable as is, but as discussed by Thomas and Richard, has a huge potential for other applications and success to grow. But to your other question, yeah, just this morning I was talking to somebody that has a lot of experience in the retail industry, and then specifically clothes. And some of those they have their own integrated channel, right? So they are a manufacturer, they are a distributor, and they are a retail company, because they basically own the whole chain. If you look at some of these larger clothes chains, for example. But it means they now have almost 3 dispersed systems. They have a system for manufacturing, and their stock there, and movement of goods and what have you, assets. Then there is distribution, and where do you put, you know, the sweater or the jeans? If somebody from New York is ordering it, but it happens to be in a Singapore warehouse, stuff like that. And then finally the stores, how do you balance your stock and everything else? And even within those types of companies, those are different systems. So there is an element of integration that needs to happen across those systems. But those systems may also reside in different clouds or in different applications or in different data centers. And that's where I think something like an API can come in and really help. Not only on an application level to integrate, but also prevent that sort of companies need to consolidate everything into the same warehouse or into the same cloud or into the same, because through an API they may be able to, you know, consume these different services collectively, and therefore have a more cost-effective way to integrate their own channel. And that's within one company, right? So now imagine that you are a retail store and you're buying from a distributor that is buying from a manufacturer. So again, if you look at some of the supply chain type integration benefits that may offer, by offering this API, you can consume that ties into a wealth of partners, connectivity, cloud, data center, yourself, security. Yeah, I think you know, the sky's the limit. So I'm really we're just scratching the surface, as Richard was saying, right? I think we can get onto something big here. And it's also going back to your first question about partnerships. You know, it's not the IXs alone. We need companies like yourself. Interaction was mentioned a couple of times, and others to make this work. But I think we can and we should. There's just no other way than to do it in a partnership, but also now really start to leverage these technology developments like API to finally make it happen, to deliver on the promise of cloud and connectivity and internet, right?
Exactly. And Thomas, just to finish on this, just in terms of success story, I know definitely, obviously, between Epsilon and DKIX, we've implemented customers using the API, and it's, you know, I have to say it's worked very, very well. You see the same and have the same opinion?
Oh yeah, definitely. So you know, we have a few resellers like yourself, yeah, right. So like Epsilon, who have implemented the API and who use it to offer to their customers in their own portal the option to directly on demand get connectivity to IXPs like DKIX, right? Or I think you have done it with Amtix and Links as well, and a few others. So so definitely that's something we see now, which is taking up. We already talked about interaction, and we just signed a huge customer, a global customer in the automotive industry, who is also using the IX API to consume a lot of cloud services on our side, cloud connectivity services on our side, next to peering, of course, and also data center interconnect. But they wanted to have an API that can be easily implemented without having a huge login. So that can be, you know, if they are not happy with the provider tomorrow, and I hope they will stay with us forever. But anyway, you know, if they are unhappy, and I can understand that, then they do not want to need to stick with this interconnection provider just because implementing a new API might be a huge burden. So this was one of the requirements when they selected us. They wanted to have an interconnection provider with a universal open API, and we could provide that easily, right? We have it in place. So it was easy for us to sign up this customer. So that was definitely a unique selling point for us, I guess, because all the others don't have this kind of APIs.
Okay, all right, cool. Just on that, I can just say that as part of our evolution, this is a really not just interesting project, but a vital project from our perspective in the growth of how our own platform Infinity performs. So, you know, it's been a great thing for us, and you know, I've touched on both internally and discussion with you or before, just you know, the internal ROI as well as that external opportunity you mentioned, Thomas, but internally as well, the efficiencies driven within our own organization are, you know, from literally from days to minutes. It's fantastic. So great project. And so I think, you know, we use a lot of terms right now, platform, as a service, etc., being thrown around a lot. But in reality, I see the IXs themselves as is probably looking to embrace and maybe adopt and evolve into this type of positioning in terms of terminology and function. Do you agree? Do you see that kind of evolution in terms of the positioning of the IX? Richard, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't say that we're 100% understanding where we're gonna see it evolve over, say, 3 to 5 years time. But I mean, we if you look at infrastructure that we put into the metros, into the cities that we participate in, the infrastructure itself is the platform. And then one of the features that we happen to run on it is actually the internet exchange peering service, and that's including the root servers and connectivity across for BGP peering. The IX platform, or the interconnection platform that we provide, is going to be enriched as Thomas says there. He's got different segments of the market coming to him to wanting to consume cloud, and they're using the IX API as an easy mechanism to do that. That's not for a traditional IX peering service that we're providing there. That's for an additional overlay service. And I think we've all got part of that. Why we can collaborate on the IX API is because we've all got part of that as our evolution strategy, as we try and enrich the platform that we run and operate. And we're all very good and proficient at growing, providing reliable platforms that scale really well. But how do we continue to offer additional services? And that is part of our strategy. I think you call it platform as a service, or a digital meetup. There's going to be more and more services that we see enabled, and different types of customers and members come to our companies to say, look, we see you offer this service, and we'd like to consume it through you. And as you know, the more with any platform strategy, the more interest, the more participation, the richer number of services, then the more attractive your platform becomes. And I think part of our strategy around digitization and our XAPI is to make that journey for the end user and the use case stories is to make that as easy and painless as possible, so that we provide a valuable service to their business.
Peter, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, yes, of course. But the thing I think we also may have a little bit of a definition question sometimes here, right? You said it yourself. We're using a lot of terms and terminology, and actually, what do we mean by platform? Right? I think if the three of us or the four of us talk about platform, I think it's more about the switching fabric and all of that comes with fabric, another term. But of course, you may look at the Deliveroo or Uber as a platform, or you may look at Azure or Amazon Cloud as a platform. So I think to some extent there is an element of definition that we need to be clear on when we have discussions like this, even amongst ourselves, because you can easily get confused. What do we mean by the platform? But I think I can only echo Richard's comments in that if we look at our platform, the switching platform we have and all the services that are available on those, yes, we will continue to involve that. And like Richard, we have some idea where we want to go, but some of it is also open. And I think specifically when we look at some developments around, dare I say, remote peering, or actually also consuming services that are not necessarily on the POP itself, we're all doing it, right? We're all building solutions around that as well. And it's also opening up the ecosystem. I think all of us are available in hundreds of data centers by now through this ability to pair remotely. And that's, we sometimes are flabbergasted by things we find in those smaller data centers, types of applications that are running there, or ecosystems that we hadn't even heard about, but provide a tremendous amount of value to a local community or to a vertical that we hadn't realized. So I think in that sense, by continuing to enrich the ecosystem and continuing to build the services that allow that to do that simply, effectively, that's what we need to continue to do. And therefore, yeah, again, if it's a platform or a platform as a service, or we'll figure out the terminology going forward, but that we're heading in that direction, I think that's a given.
Thomas, any other terms to throw in?
Yeah, definitely. For me, the more important thing is about as a service, right? So because as a service means usually that's easy to consume. It comes usually with an API. This term is from the initial cloud computing world, right? Where when you talk about infrastructure as a service, you talk about the VM, which can be composed using an API and all this kind of stuff, and you have proper self-service portals. So consuming this type of good is easy. And I think what we all are working on is making the consumption of our services easier. On demand with an API, so that you can easily integrate that in your automation toolchain, or also even in your application if you need to. If you have specific applications with specific network or interconnection requirements, and you can easily build that into the application, make sure the application gets what it needs in terms of interconnection features. And this is a step which we are taking, right? We are providing APIs, we are providing self-service portals, we integrate with our transport providers, how we call them, so that we can how Peter called it remote peering. I'm not really happy with the term remote peering, because for me it's peering. That the difference is that the customer might be a bit, or the route of the customer might be a bit, might not be in the same data center as the POP from Amplix or Pkix or Links. It's a little bit more distance in between, but come on, that's in most of the cases true anyway, even if the customer is directly peering with one of the IXPs. But I don't want to go down this road. I want to focus more on as a service, because I think we need to make it easier for all of our customers, and especially for enterprises who want to consume cloud connectivity services. They are used to have services which they easily can consume, which are easily understandable. And if you think about DevOps or NetDevs, or how you call all this new kind of developers who need to have a broader understanding of what's going on, not only develop the application but also handle the infrastructure. They need to have the proper tools in place so that they can do their job, and this means providing APIs again, and self-service portals, and proper documentation, and SDKs, and all this kind of stuff. And I think we need to develop into this direction more and more, and we already see that with the IX API, and so I think the as a service is the more important topic or word here which we need to focus on.
I agree, and even from Epsilon's perspective, we provide voice services as well, and just when I and our team, we sat down and said, what do we have that's valuable, that can be presented in a different way, that is going to be something fairly new to the receiver of that function or service, but also add a lot of value to their application stack. And then, so providing a programmable telephone number sounds very basic, right? But that hasn't existed for very long, which is crazy. But that changes the experience of the end user applications, like your taxi cab apps and so forth. And it's exactly the same with networking, to be able to understand what functions you have and then present those out in a way that somebody like your new customer you've just signed says, actually, this is cool, I really want it, but I don't want to access it and consume it in the traditional way that some traditional telcos have provided me that service. I want that delivered to me in a different way, and a way that I control as well. And it's interesting that that example you used, Thomas, where essentially that company is presenting their own portal. The other thing about the power that gives is never changing the actual user experience of your own portal, but you're free to plumb in and chop and change stuff around out the back without now impacting your customer experience. So hopefully improving, right? So yeah, very good point. So thanks very much for that. So I guess kind of moving on a little bit, but staying in the same realm of again, collaboration, but what do you see in terms of other sort of industry opportunities or functions that not quite here now, that, if you can share, are kind of on the horizon? Do you see any kind of next generation stuff that's not a reality yet, but might be something that you consider? And I know Peter touched on the supply chain, and is this stuff going to be driven by AI or blockchain? Anything to throw in the pot? Start with you, Thomas.
So the fancy stuff with AI and blockchain, we are building network infrastructure, so usually that's not the hot shit we are touching. However, what we are currently looking into, and I think I can disclose that to a certain extent, so AMSIX, Links, NetNod, and DKIX, we are looking into how we can get a second route server implementation to the scale so that it fits our requirements, because today Bird is the route server that is used by all of us, and it's doing a tremendous job. Don't get me wrong; it's a great tool and a great route server. However, we are only, it's a single vendor, and we all know if you run infrastructure, it's probably better if you split up the vendors into at least two groups. This is why Links, for instance, is running two networks, right? Because in the past there were some scalability reasons for that to do so, and I think that was a wise decision back then. And currently we see that with route servers we have only one, and which is doing again a great job, but is just one. So the nightmare that keeps me up at night actually is that there's a bug within Bird that could be remotely triggered by a BGP update, and all of our route servers go down worldwide, globally. That would be a nightmare, because at DKIX we know that roughly 1/3 of the traffic is depending on the route server, so on the route which are exchanged over the route server. So a lot of our customers would be impacted by that, and I'm pretty sure you could see that the next day in the news that that if the route servers went down globally, So this is why we have talked about that, as I mentioned earlier, we will probably do something in this regard to come up with a second route server implementation that is as good as BERT is, and the burden is the threshold is very, very high here. So I think we need to push hard to get it to that level. But yeah, I think it's worth spending this these resources to provide an even more stable. And now BERT is stable, so it's not about stability; it's a risk mitigation effort here. So we want to reduce the risk of depending on just one vendor on the route server side. So and this is what we try to achieve here, and to make sure that our customers can also sleep very well at night.
So Richard, as well, anything to add to that? And do you see a lot of that sort of next generation stuff coming within the existing environment?
Yeah, and just to add to that, obviously we're very supportive of the root server work that Thomas mentioned there. It's critical, to our core service, the IXP, to have a diverse root server. I mean, where else do we see immediate development? I think that probably in the very short term, I mean, what we're looking at is closed user groups. So the use of this dynamic as a service, as Thomas mentioned, is can you enable a closed user group that maybe wouldn't have attracted a particular market segment before, that they can actually interface and say, hey, there's a group of interest that might be around a market segment. It might be around a service like security or an overlay type service. But those are the sort of areas I think will be interesting for us in the short term. Longer term, it sort of comes back to, well, what else are we doing as a collaboration across all internet exchanges? I mean, one thing that we need to do is we need to expose the health of the internet exchange and the health of the service or services that we run over the internet exchange. That challenge is something that faces all of us, and I think there's an opportunity for us to collaborate on, and that's where you start to get into interesting things like AI, machine learning, intelligent bots that monitor the health of these services. And it would be silly for us to think that we're all going to come up with something unique and original. I think there's plenty of opportunity for us to look at how intelligent machine learn or artificial intelligent driven applications for health of internet exchanges or health of peering or health of interconnection can be implemented to make our businesses better, but also exposed to our customers and to our members to give greater insight. And so I think that technically, when we just talk about technical opportunity, I think that's a real one for us to focus on as well.
Okay, and Peter, anything to add?
Yeah, sometimes it's obvious, but also sometimes scary how much we are alike. Right, so all those things apply to OMSIS as well. I think there's two other things that I'd like to mention that we are involved with. One is it's a program called 2Stick, which is a consortium of companies that is looking at alternative routing methods to see if we can address some of the flaws that sit in some of the current routing protocols. And actually, there's some traction there with the companies really wanting to use it and test it, and so that's an interesting one. Just as a, wouldn't want to call it an experiment because it's quite serious, but where we're literally trying to see if there's flaws we can solve when it comes to internet routing. And another one is around data, and I'm not sure, but I think we touched upon it in the last session as well. So the data lakes are becoming data oceans, are becoming data universes. It's incredible the size of data, and therefore it's becoming more and more complex to actually push the data around. So more and more, whether it's machine learning or AI or VMs, but more and more we start to see that actually I'll call it an AI, actually is traveling to the database, consuming it, coming back with some answers, and then you can build on that going forward. So we're also involved with some research that's being done and trying to figure out how that could potentially become a service where you could actually help organizations to consume data rather than having it not transform, but to transfer across data centers or even continents. So I think those are two things that we're working on. that are more future focused, right? But again, if you combine all of the things the three of us discussed, then all of it is necessary to deal with that example of the retail chain I just gave you. Because yeah, there's some important hurdles to be taken. But yeah, that's just a flavor of some of the things we see happening in the future.
Actually, Peter, for our last question, I'm going to follow up on that, and just you mentioned about data, and you know, I'm a big believer in what drives the evolution of everything in our world right now is the data and the application, and then obviously the networking enables that flow in some way, shape, or form. But data is critical in terms of being able to interpret it and act on it as well, right? Are you looking at investing in or presenting data and analytics as almost maybe as a service in the next step, or you know, take it to a level over and above what you do now?
Yeah, so we're looking into that because for a number of reasons. The way I talk about data in general is there's almost three stages, right? There's data. That data can turn into information, and that information enriched then turns into knowledge. And I think if we talk about analytics and you look at the way data is traveling or how routing happens, then having good analytics about all of that is going to help you decide how to optimize your network or how to optimize your connectivity. And again, if we would be able to combine that with automation, then I think we're getting to some sort of a holy grail, right? Where there's an automated optimum route type service available. So I think we're all dreaming of that. But yeah, analytics is important because if you can't see it, you can't measure it, right? Or sorry, if you can't see it, you can't manage it. And that's true for data as well. So I think all of us are investing in analytics and trying to understand better what's happening on the platform. Yeah, that may become a service. I think we need to be careful because we're also dealing with a lot of sensitive data, dare I say, or yeah, we're not so much interested in the content per se. It's really about sort of the metadata and what's happening on the platform and how we would be able to turn that into a value add for our customers so they can use the traffic analytics to decide and optimize their connectivity. And we are investing in that too as something we see coming in the future. Yeah.
Okay. And Thomas, you have a thought process at the moment around the data actually as a, you know, I guess a company, if I don't think it's a company that has a lot of different sites and regional environments as well. And, you know, a single customer may have many different sort of DKIC services around the place. So, you know, providing that kind of presentation of analytics and data might be very valuable to those types of companies.
So yeah, definitely. So if we talk about data, I want to be sure that we talk about the right levels. So we are an internet exchange on a cloud exchange in the end, right? So and by German and by European data protection laws, we are only allowed to look into the layer which we are working on. So for instance, on the peering side, on layer 2 and layer 3, and all what is you know, higher up the layer until the application, we are not allowed to look into. So what we do is we already provide today very strong analytics tool in our customer portal, so customers can you know, for instance, how much traffic they're exchanging with other peers, you know, and you know, how that developed over time and all this kind of stuff. Because we can only do that on layer 3, we also provide them, for instance, IPFix data streams generated on our platform for the traffic they are generating on our platform, and they can get that data stream exported for their own analytics tools, which then can look a lot deeper into what's going on. Again, by German and European data protection law, we're not allowed to do so, and I think actually it's a good thing. So you know, we are just an internet interconnection provider, the internet infrastructure. We shouldn't look into the application so much, and we don't, and we can't, and that's good. But again, we want to provide the customers the value. If they want to understand what's exactly going on our platform, we provide them the data stream so that they can put that into their analytics tool, it's Kintec, PMAC, or whatever, then they can analyze that. And that's heavily used, actually. Customers love this kind of insights, especially, for instance, if they're, if there's coming unwanted traffic. So if somebody is, having a wrong route configured in the route, or by accident or by purpose or whatever, they can easily detect that if they get the insights from our platform for their own analytics tools. And also with DDoS attacks, if currently if your port is fully loaded with a massive volumetric DDoS attack, you can't see how big it is and how much traffic we throw away on our platform. But with this kind of insight and analytics, you can easily understand how much how huge the traffic and the DDoS attack was. And these are just two use cases why it makes sense to provide these insights to customers. And yeah, and I can just underline what Peter said about analytics. It's super important that you better understand what's going on so that you can better manage it and optimize it for your use case, right?
Yeah, and Richard, I know definitely from the Link side, your I think product team are looking at the different ways that the data can be sliced as well from an analytical perspective as well, and deliver value analytics out of, and even decision tree sort of analytics out of that data, and whether it's looking for anomalies based on past data. So I'm guessing that you see or are being asked about the value of that data and how you present that. So is that something that you're looking at investing in, much more, maybe going into 2021?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just to Thomas's point, this data we're talking about is our data about the health of the exchange and what's going on, as opposed to the contents of any traffic that goes through, because we're governed by the same rules as what Thomas mentioned. But yeah, why would you go back to the platform as a service? Why would businesses choose to use us over just letting traffic run over the normal internet traffic? The IX is almost a dedicated part that can give some insight into how performance of data is being handled. And I think as enterprises explore the interconnection ecosystem, the cloud delivery services, they come to internet exchanges, and we present a service that is great. It's high performance, it's low latency, it's better performing on jitter, and various factors around traffic management that we like to say that the internet exchanges are really good at. And we've got to be able to present that data for enterprises that want to consume services. They'll come to us if they can see that there is good quality and stability. For traditional peering services, there's always 2 or 3 paths through to an end destination, and businesses will choose, sometimes through standard BGP metrics, but businesses will choose how they want to route traffic, and we want to be able to present the internet exchanges as a healthy and stable environment. And we've put an awful lot of work and care into making sure that we do have high quality infrastructure. So we do want to present that, and so investing in how we expose data, points, metadata, and analytics, telemetry around the health of the exchange are all services that we feel are important. And yes, we're investing in that next year.
Yeah, and I think with any luck, at least, I think there'll be a new type of community member actually that will find that information, as you said, maybe almost mission critical into how they manage their own application and network environments going into the future. And it's going to be a big part of their decision-making process into incorporating the IX function into more and more sort of enterprise orientated, let's call them, projects and a business support mechanism. So I'd like to thank everybody, Peter, Richard, Thomas. It's been a great session. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of what has been the 2020 Peering 101s. We hope that 2021 will continue to have a lot more sessions and continue this discussion and an evolutionary thought process around what's just around the corner, as well as what's happening today. So again, I really want to thank Peter, Richard, and Thomas for their time and wonderful insights. I hope that we've all learned a little something around what's going on in the interconnection and peering world and landscape. I hope everybody who's tuned in has enjoyed the sessions. You can find more information on the individual Internet Exchange websites, as well as there should be a bunch of links on this webinar page as well. So thank you all for joining us, including our 3 guests today. And enjoy the rest of 2020, and I look forward to catching up with everybody in 2021.
Thanks, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for having us. Take care.
Right.
Stay